In today's video, we're going to be going over conditional probability. We're going to start by going over how to identify when to use conditional probability, and then we're going to transition and go over the formulas and visually understand them. And then, of course, we're going to wrap up the video with examples, including dice and cards. So if this is something you struggle with, keep watching. So let's say we have to find the probability of A given B. Now the keyword given indicates that we're going to be using what we call conditional probability. Now as a refresher with normal probability, remember to find the probability of an event, it's always going to be the number of items in our event divided by the total number of outcomes. But with conditional probability, it's a little different because instead of our sample space being the total outcomes in our sample space, the keyword given B indicates that our sample space is going to be narrowed down to all the items in event B. So let's visualize this. So let's say we had events A and B. Given B tells us that now our sample space has been narrowed down to everything in event B. So instead of dealing with the entirety of all the items in event A and B, now it's just everything in event B. And to find the probability of A, well, the only way to do this is to find the intersection of A and B, because this is the only time that A would also occur. So to translate this as a formula, we can represent it like this, where we'd say the probability of A given B. Now this vertical bar is how we would denote given, okay? And we'll always have it in this format where what we're finding will always be on the left. So we are finding the probability of A, and then what we're given will always be on the right side. So we will denote it as the probability of A given B is equal to, and then because our sample space is now narrowed down to everything in event B, in the denominator, it's actually going to be just the probability of B. And then in the numerator, it's actually going to be the probability of the intersection of A and B. So the probability of A given B is equal to the probability of A intersection B divided by the probability of B. Now, alternatively, we may see it worded like this, where it says find the probability of B given A. And instead of our sample space being narrowed down to B, this just means now our sample space is narrowed down to everything in event A. So to visualize this, A would be shaded, and then of course to find everything in B, well, that would just also be the intersection of A and B, okay? So to represent this as a formula, we can say the probability of B given A, because remember this time we're finding B and we're given A, so we would format it like this, and then it'll be equal to, and in the denominator, now it'll be the probability of A since that's what we're given, and then in the numerator, it still remains the same. It's going to be the probability of A and B. Now, what's important with conditional probability is if you notice now in our denominators, it's going to be the probability of B or the probability of A. Now, as you know, with probability, it can range from 0 to 1. Big emphasis on 0, right? Now, why am I emphasizing that probability can be 0? It's because there can be scenarios that what we're given, the probability of what we're given can possibly be 0, okay? And because the probability of what we're given is going to be our denominator, we have to ensure it's not 0 because, we can't have undefined values. So it's very important that with both these formulas that either the probability of B is greater than 0 or the probability of A is greater than 0, depending on which you use. And if you have a scenario where it's not greater than 0, you can just simply put that it's undefined or does not exist. Now, lastly, I just want to go over some other keywords that indicates conditional probability. The most common one is given, of course, but some other keywords to be on the lookout for is if, or like assuming. You'll see it formatted like this, like if A was the probability of B, or assuming A was the probability of B. And both if and assuming just means that that is what you're given as well. So these are just some other keywords to look for to know when it's conditional probability. Now, enough yapping. Let's move on to some examples. So for our first example, it says find the probability of rolling a dice that is less than 4 given that it's odd. So as you know, with a dice, there's 6 possibilities. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. Now, in this case, it says we're given all the dice that are odd. So remember, the first thing that we want to do is find the probability of what we're given. In this case, we want to find the probability of rolling a dice that's odd. And there would only be, in this case, 3 items, which would be 1, 3, and 5. So the probability of rolling an odd would actually be equal to 3 out of 6. Okay. Now the next thing we want to do is find the probability of rolling a dice that is both odd and less than 4. And the only dice that would basically meet this criteria would be dice 1 and 3. They're both odd and less than 4. So that is a 2 out of 6 chance. And then when we piece it together, when we want to find the probability of rolling a dice that's less than 4, given that it's odd, using the formula, we would basically, in our numerator, we would put the intersection of the two, which is 2 out of 6, divided by our denominator, which would be the probability of rolling an odd, which is 3 out of 6, which would all simplify to 2/3, which is about 66.7% chance. And that would be how we would calculate this. Now, this is the way we would do it using the formula, which is perfectly fine, but I actually have a quicker way that we can do it where it doesn't require us to have to find the probability of what we're given and the intersection of the two. So I'm going to show you that one. So instead of finding the probability of what we're given and the intersection of the two, what we can first do is just narrow down our sample space of what we're given. In this case, we're given all items that are odd. So right off the bat, we can just narrow down our sample space to all dice that are odd, which would just be 1, 3, and 5. And then boom, there we go. We can remove the other dice, kind of disregard them, and kind of use this as our starting point. Now we can just, out of what we're given, we can just identify everything that's less than 4, which would be dice 1 and 3. Okay. And then to find the probability of roll a dice that's less than 4 given that it's odd, in this case, in our numerator, we would just put 2 because there's only 2 that are less than 4. And then our denominator, we'd put 3 because there's a total of 3 items. And as you see, we get the same answer as before when we were using the formula, but it was a lot quicker. So we get 2/3, which is about 66.7% chance. So moving forward, we will be using this method just because it is quicker. So with that being said, let's move on to the next example. All right, for our next example, it says find the probability of rolling a multiple of 3 given that it's greater than 2. So first thing is, what are we given? We're given all the dice that are greater than 2. So what we can do is just narrow down our sample space to all of those dice. So that would just consist of dice 3, 4, 5, and 6. So what we'll do is just narrow it down to those 4 dice. Now the next thing is we need to find which dice are a multiple of 3. Now if you need a little refresher on what a multiple of 3 is, examples would be like 3, 6, and 9. Essentially, these are all multiples of 3 because they're all the result being multiplied by 3. Because 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9. So that's a multiple of 3. So in this case, the dice that would be a multiple of 3 would be 3 and 6. Those are the only dice. So in this case, when we calculate the probability of rolling a dice that's a multiple of 3, given that it's greater than 2, in our numerator, it would just be 2 because there's only 2 that are a multiple of 3. And then in our denominator, it would just be 4, which would simplify the 1/2, which is 50%. So for our next example, it says 2 dice are rolled. If at least one die is 6, what is the probability the sum is greater than 10? Now this time we are given the keyword if, which also indicates we're using conditional probability. But I know it's formatted a little different, but if is the same thing as like what we're given. So this time, if at least one die is 6 is essentially the same thing as saying that we're given all the pairs of dice that have at least one 6 in it. So let's first narrow down our sample space to all the pairs that have a 6. So when we list out all the items, we do have 36 pairs. but out of the 36, the only ones that would have a 6 would essentially be the last row and the last column, which would consist of 11 pairs. So what we can do is narrow down our sample space to those 11 pairs. And then now that we have it narrowed down, we can identify all the pairs whose sum is greater than 10, which would consist of pairs 5 and 6, 6 and 5, and 6 and 6. So when we find the probability of rolling 2 dice whose sum is greater than 10 and at least has a 6, that would be a 3 out of 11 chance, which is about a 27.3% chance. In our next example, we have 2 dice are rolled. If the sum of the dice is 20, what is the probability both dice are even? So this time we are given all the pairs whose sum is 20. So let's first narrow down our sample space to all those pairs. So once again, we'll have 36 pairs, but we do have a problem because when we roll 2 dice, at least standard dice, the maximum sum in this case would be 12 because the maximum pairs would be a 6 and a 6, which is 12. Which means that there's no possibility of rolling a pair that will give us a sum of 20. So rolling a pair that will give us 20, like the probability of that is going to be 0. And if you remember when I was going over the formulas, it's very pertinent that the probability of what we're given is greater than 0. And in this case, that is not the case. So when we find the probability of rolling a pair that is even, given that its sum is 20, it'll actually be undefined because its probability is already 0 of what we're given. So this was a trick question. I just wanted to sneak that in there. But let's move on to the next example. So for our next example, it says find the probability of drawing a queen given the card is a face card. So this time we're switching up and we're now dealing with cards. Fun, right? So let's first identify all that we're given, which is all the face cards, okay? So as you know, in a standard deck of cards, we do have 52 cards that we're dealing with. Now, out of the 52, there's only going to be 12 face cards. As a refresher, face cards will consist of a jack, queen, and king. And remember, there are 4 suits, which is clubs, spades, hearts, and diamonds. So if we have 3 face cards and 4 suits, 3 times 4 would be 12. So there's 12 face cards. So what we can do is narrow down our sample space to all 12 of those face cards. Now we do want to find all of the cards that are queens given that it's a face card, right? So now what we can do is identify all the queen cards. And in this case, that would consist of 4 items, these 4 cards right here. So when we find the probability of drawing a queen given that it's a face card, that would be equal to 4 because there's only 4 queens divided by 12 since there's 12 face cards, which would simplify to 1/3, which is about 33% chance. So moving on to our next example, it says find the probability of drawing an ace given it's a red card. So as you know, or you may not know, in a standard deck of cards, there are 52 cards, but it is split in half between 2 colors, which is red and black. So there's 26 red and 26 black. All the reds would be hearts and diamonds. All the blacks would be clubs and spades. So when narrowing down our sample space, we can just identify and narrow it down to all the red cards, which now we'll be left with these 26 cards here. Now we just want to find the probability of drawing an ace given that's red. So now we can identify all the aces. And in this case, there's only going to be 2 aces, okay? So when it comes to finding the probability of drawing an ace given that's a red card, it's going to be equal to 2 out of 26, which would simplify to 1 out of 13, which is about a 7.7% chance. Now, we can move on to our final example. It says, find the probability of drawing a red card given it's an ace. Now, if you notice, this is actually the flip of our previous problem Previously, we were finding the probability of drawing an ace given that's a red, but now we're finding the probability of drawing a red given that's an ace. So this would be a classic example of when to use the alternate formula that we went over earlier, because literally our events are switching. So this would be like the only time I would say, hey, use this formula. But of course, it really doesn't matter. It's always about how you define what you're given and what you're finding, okay? So in this case, what we can first do is narrow down all our cards that are aces. And in this case, there's just going to be 4 aces. So now we'll narrow it down to these 4 cards. And out of the 4 cards, there's only going to be 2 that are red cards. So the probability of drawing a red card given that's an ace would be equal to 2 out of 4, which would simplify to 1/2, which is a 50% chance. So as you see, it is more likely to draw a card that is red given that's an ace, as opposed to it being drawing an ace given that's red. But that pretty much wraps up this video, guys. That was the last example. So I hope you found this video helpful on conditional probability, and take care.